Hi, my name is Cecil Baumann, and I'm your host as well as the founder of Ganz in Bewegung. I'm a posture and movement habit change coach, passionate about helping individuals enhance their mind body connection. At Ganz in Bewegung, we serve holistic thinkers who are eager to improve their overall well being and understanding of themselves through movement. Our approach emphasizes that true transformation comes from a deep awareness of how we interact with our bodies and environment. I'm honored to welcome you to today's interview with the wonderful Patrick Nairne, expert with image capture and corporate trainer and creator of the Look Good, Sound Great formula. Before we bring Patrick into the conversation, let me take a moment to explain what I mean by mind body connection. The Ganz in Bewegung system we developed encompasses 7 defining components of being human: movement, body awareness, our surroundings, personal experiences, emotions, thoughts, processes, and breathing. These elements are interconnected, creating a holistic framework that influences how we live and interact with the world around us. With that context in mind, today we are excited to dive into our discussion with Patrick Nairne, the founder and CEO of Patrick Nairne Ltd, an expert specializing in optimizing online presence for coaches and consultants with his unique Look Good, Sound Great formula. Patrick helps female coaches overcome the overwhelm of tools and technology, enabling them to present live online with confidence. Combining decades of experience in photography, lighting, and corporate training, Patrick equips coaches and consultants with the skills they need to present themselves professionally and comfortably in the digital space. Through his four-step process, Patrick has helped numerous clients transform their online presence and build genuine connections with their audiences. His passion for education and personal development shines through not only his approach to enhance appearance and sound during presentations, but also in his vision to create a community of coaches ready to make a difference in the world. Let's start our conversation with Patrick. Welcome, Patrick. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Oh, thank you, Cecile. It's a pleasure to finally be able to speak with you this way and to share some insights with your audience. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. We know each other from Mastermind with Kane and Alessia Minkus during COVID, and you helped me a lot to build my own online studio, and your help is really appreciated, and this continued support is really fantastic. So thank you, Patrick, for that. Patrick,
It's a
your
pleasure.
look good, sound great formula has not only helped me, but many coaches. What were some of the common challenges that your clients faced before working with you?
Well, thank you very much, Cecile. It's been a pleasure to work with you and to sort of see how much of a difference that it's made for you in your studio and in your ability to present and to uh, enhance your confidence. And I think that's really the place to start is the sort of the biggest challenges that my audience tend to come to me with is the lack of confidence. And they don't necessarily come to me and say, Patrick, I'm not feeling confident about presenting, but all of the different positions that they place in front of what's stopping them is usually what tells me that it's a lack of confidence. And it tends to manifest itself by I don't really understand how to operate equipment, or I've plugged something in and I no longer have sound, or I've unplugged something and I don't see the picture anymore. And I want to put some slides on the screen, but I don't know how to get the slides to work. So it tends to be a number of different things that tend to bring them, but they're all around I really feel uncomfortable in this environment. It's not what I'm used to. I'm a coach. I help people with the inner work, but now I'm putting myself out there and I don't want to press a button in the middle of my presentation, everything disappears. So it's largely the confidence issue that is the first thing that I tend to notice. But the second part of it is I want to actually have an online presence that matches my expertise. And it's quite funny how many coaches would come to me and say, look, I'm having some very high level sales conversations, but I'm noticing that I'm the only one who looks like I'm presenting from my laptop, whereas everybody else looks like they've actually got a look, or even if it's not a full blown studio, but they at least look like they're presenting from a bit more of a polished setup. And so they just wanted to create more presence. So those are the two main things that they tend to come to me for.
Yeah, and it's really making a big difference. I mean, if you know the tech issues or you can handle the tech issues and everything is prepared well, you feel much more secure, even though each time there are challenges to overcome, but you get
Definitely.
better and better with time. And this is really a big help that you are present and you have this knowledge. It's really it's wonderful, wonderful. So, how
Thank you.
has your experience as an architectural photographer shaped your perspective on online presentations? Are there parallels between those two disciplines? I mean, the lighting, you know. I don't want to say too much. I let you talk.
No, no, that's good. You've led me into a very good direction there because um, even though prior to sort of stepping into this arena, I was primarily focused in terms of architectural photography. I actually have a wealth of experience in wedding photography, in portraits, in photographing heads of organizations and doing events. So I've got a broader spectrum, which is a little bit more tied in, but definitely from an architectural photography point of view, it's the precision. You need to be precise with architectural photography because it's all about making the building look as real as if someone was able to see it for themselves with their own eyes. And there are a couple of things that you have to be aware of, particularly with buildings, is you don't want the building to look like it's falling over, because if you take a photo and you lean backwards and you point the camera up, what happens is it makes the vertical sort of sides of the building look like they're tilting in like that.
Mhm.
And this gives an awareness for why we don't want to have our laptop doing the same thing. What our laptop is doing when we have the laptop sort of tilted backwards, the camera is now looking up at us in the same way, and it makes us have this sense of distortion that, yeah, it's a very strange look. And that starts to tell the audience, A, that you're on a laptop, or if you're on, say, a mobile. We are using mobiles a lot these days. And what tends to happen is you're wobbling this mobile about all the time, and it becomes a distraction to the person that you're on the other side with. And given that we are now doing so much communication in this method online, it matters. It makes a big difference. But the other side of this was when I was lighting people for, doing what we typically call a headshot. And if you think about LinkedIn, for instance, yeah, when LinkedIn became a big deal, people kept coming to me and saying, "Can I get a really nice shot for LinkedIn?" And what we would start to do is to think, well, there is an aesthetic, if we want to call it that, that makes a photograph look like you're a leader in an organization. We call that the hero shot. And then there's the standard, like a passport type photograph. And so we want to make sure that we talk to the correct language visually. And so all of that has informed me to be able to like pinpoint the correct angles for people to say, this is how much of yourself you want to present when you're having a meeting. And when you're trying to teach or having a lecture, you might want to step back just a little bit more so that you're tying into that aesthetic, but it all really matters. And all of that has gone to informing the lighting, for instance. How do we light what's behind you as much as what's in front of you? These are decisions that you make as a photographer that make a huge difference. And that's why magazines used to sell so well, right?
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, and it's so important, the first impression counts. And it's
Yes.
also about self confidence. You often speak about the importance of self confidence during a live presentation. So, how can coaches work on overcoming their nervousness specifically? Let's
Yeah. Good.
talk
That's good.
about
And that
nervous, the nerves.
be, being nervous, and also being self-judgmental, because these are the two things that are happening whilst we are presenting or when we are going to step up. Now, let's face it, it's not natural for most of us. We do not want to be in that public limelight because there's this big fear of judgment. We don't want other people to look at us and say anything negative. We want them to focus on us and what we have to offer. But what is confidence really? Well, confidence is when you have the ability to step out of that frame of worrying about what other people are going to say. People who are largely deemed confident or consider themselves confident are sometimes on this slight line that we might call arrogance. In other words, they are so disconnected from their audience that it doesn't matter what their audience think. And that's not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is the confidence that allows us to not worry about what other people are going to say, not worry about how people are going to judge us, because we're always going to be judged regardless, right? We can't avoid that. So,
That's true.
what is happening in the moment where we're about to step up is we're having this conversation in our mind, and then we're playing this little video about how it's going to turn out. And that usually is the killer of your confidence if the video doesn't go the way that you really want it to go. And if the video is going the way you want it to go, what you're actually doing is you're playing the confidence video to yourself and you're having the conversation that allows you to see the outcome the way that you'd like it to be. And ultimately, that's what the coach is doing differently when someone steps up and they look incredibly confident. Don't be under any illusion at all. We all experience that question mark of, is this going to be an immaculate performance? Am I going to get it right? Or is this going to be one where I'm just in the process of learning how to get better? And I would say that if you just, from a coach's perspective, just take every single time that you're going to speak to people, think of that as an opportunity to refine who you are. Don't think of this as being like my best performance, because your best performance is always somewhere in the future, right? It's never today. You're going to have to do the same thing. And there's this old adage that they say it's 10,000 hours to excellence, right?
Mhm.
Well, it might not necessarily be 10,000 real hours, but it's going to take time. It's going to give you the sort of the statement within yourself that I am committed to just improving. So for coaches who are worried and really thinking to themselves, how do I approach this stage and how do I, well, don't make it so big, first of all. Don't make the stage this impossible space that you need to go in and perform perfectly every time, and just really say to yourself, I'm getting better. I'm better than I was when I first started. And even if this is like the first time I'm going to do this, just go through in front of your mirror and practice and talk. And the confidence will come not because you're trying to force it, but because you're going through the process of practicing and getting better and improving, and have a better conversation for yourself. Put on a better video that says this goes well instead of it's not going to go well.
Yeah, it's all about the thinking, how we think on before the situation, during the situation. We can also get disturbed from thoughts about, oh,
Yes.
I missed something, or and the audience immediately catch it if you
Yeah.
show it,
Yeah.
and I think it's really the the key is really to train before, train during, and it's taking away the stress, if you have this mindset of, I'm in the learning process
Yes.
and I'm
Always.
allowed to learn and I don't have to
Yeah.
be perfect. I think this
Yeah.
is a big stressor. But I also noticed really the equipment, that you can handle the equipment. This is something you don't have to worry anymore. It takes really away the
Yes.
worrying, and you know what to do when it's not working well. You know what are the chances you have to to cope with this. So it's
Well,
really
I'll
a
just
big deal, the
I'll
equipment.
just add something to that, Cecile, which is really important. Is if you look at around the world, we have people who put out fires, right? In the UK, we call them firemen. fire people. I don't know what the term is, but people who put out fires, right?
Yeah.
And we kind of see that they spend a lot of their time not putting out fires. They are not, like 8 hours a day putting out fires. But what they're
Yeah.
doing in the rest of the day is they are practicing. They're going through a rehearsal process to say, okay, we're just going to go practice putting out a fire for petrol. Then we're going to practice putting out a fire for something that's got gas or a battery fire. And what they're doing is they're going through a rehearsal process. And if you watch athletics, and I know in Switzerland you have a lot of athletics in the summer, but if you notice that people who are going to go to the start, they go through what we might call a ritual or a routine, and they do something, and you think every single time this person is going to start, they do the same routine, right? Why? Because it's a part of that process that we all use to anchor ourselves into that moment, into our performance. And you could do that as a coach, is to have a routine that you do. And I've seen people doing this at events where they go behind the stage and some of them are jumping up and down, some of them are doing some kind of rehearsal, and they're talking to themselves and they're doing all kinds of strange things. Well, that's a ritual that is all about anchoring to your confidence, right? So do what it takes, and it may be that for you it's a ritual. It may be for another person it's doing all of this quietly in your head. You're going through the process, but the main thing is to practice. Do it a few times, and then it will become more natural, because we're not born with this, right? None of us
No.
came out of, the doctor, woke us up into the world and said, "You're a speaker." That's not how it works.
Yeah, so true, so true. Let's talk about your method. Your method consists of 4 steps. Could you provide
Mhm.
a brief overview of this process and explain why each step is important?
Sure. So the whole concept of the look good, sound great formula is, firstly, we want to know that we look good, because that's the confidence bringer, shall we say. If I can see myself online and I know that I'm looking the way that I want to look, then that's taken out of the way. That's like about 70% of the problem removed straight away. And so we focus first on taking the technology side of it and allowing for ourselves to create the studio that we need. Not that everybody's going to have the same kind of studio, because for some people, the presentation style doesn't need a studio with lots of great lighting. It just needs for them to be lit very well. And for a lot of people, if they're going to present, for instance, if you're doing programming, for instance, you might just want a small picture of yourself down in the bottom corner, and so you don't need all of this big picture all the time. But what we'll do is we'll get the lighting right. And then the next step of that really is to add to that the sound side of it. So once we've got the first two pillars, if you will, the light and the sound together, so we know we look good and we sound great, then the next step of that is to be able to create great content. So this is the part that most people kind of ignore, is they think that if I just look amazing online and I have lots of videos and the technology and all of that sort of mesmerizing our audience, that's a good presentation. Well, let me just take you back a little bit. There's this um, fella called, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who says, and we all remember this phrase, "I have a dream." They didn't use PowerPoints back then. They didn't use all this flashy stuff. What they did was they mastered the art of how to communicate, how to speak the words in the right order, in the right patterns, so that we have a great message.
Mm.
And then, so we spend a lot of time really understanding that there is an order and a structure to putting information out there. And I learned this through my years of teaching, is that you want to teach someone, and I'm going to say something which people may not agree with here, but as a person who's been doing this for a long time, I can tell you, we all, as human beings, we all learn exactly the same way. I know that we say there's visual learners, people who learn through hearing, some learn through reading. Actually, the learning doesn't take place in your eyes, doesn't take place in your ears. The learning takes place in a completely different place, a conscious space, which is where you think and you process the information. And so how that information gets into that space is absolutely immaterial. And I've proven this on many, many different occasions. But what is most important is that we present in a way that works the way the human mind works. That's what's most important. And the great speakers over the years have learned that. And then once you've mastered the art of speaking well, then we go into your domain, which is how do you manage your body? Because we know that there's a mind body connection, right? And if
Mhm.
my body isn't saying the same thing as what my words are saying, it doesn't work. So I need to poise myself and stand in a particular way. And if I was constantly moving around, if I was constantly flailing my arms all over the place, and if I was doing something that a lot of people do, which is, I call it playing the accordion. If you see people talking and they're just doing this all the time, all the whole time, it gets tedious for the person watching. And it also is just using up a lot of unnecessary energy. And so the whole presentation part of it is not just let's say the right things, but it's get your body and your mind doing the same thing together, so that when you call someone to attention, you can actually call them over like this. You remember to beckon them and do all of these different things that we do. And if we want someone to stop, we say stop, stop, hold on, and we modulate our voice. So all of those things are useful. But then finally, the last piece of this is all about impact. And impact happens when we bring all of it together. It's when we have the great video, when we have the ability to bring video onto stage to show testimonials of our audience, for instance, when we can put words on the screen so that we can anchor our audience into particular words or themes. But then when we add that together with a bit of music and we add that together with maybe bringing on other guests into our presentation who can, you know, anchor other ideas together. And then finally, we're wrapping that all up in a professional production. And that's what creates the impact is using all of these together and making sure everything is like a song, a melody. All of this, the instruments are playing together. Then we get that finally great impact. And those are the four pillars, but they all have to work together in order to get the right result for your audience.
Yeah, now I think a lot of major concerns for many coaches is not only the technical setup of their online studios, but all those four pillars are like a big rock, you know. Can I
Mhm.
ever be this speaker that you talk about, you know? So, how do you support your clients in elevating or alleviating stress and creating an efficient studio and getting to this point to be a great performer?
I love it. That's the best question of all, right? Is the process. And ultimately, over the many years of teaching and interacting with people, and I learned a lot of this through actual photography, right? When you're working with a photographer who is communicating with you, and I would very often do, you know, these headshots or do full body shots, and I'd be working with someone and they'd say, I'm not really confident. I don't like the way I look. We'd have all of that conversation going on. And what I would do is I would start to firstly talk to them about the impact that they're going to make. So we focus our attention where we want our attention to go, right? We need to make an effort to do that. And so we talk a lot about what they do, how, where's their genius, you know, and we start talking. You see these people come alive and they're animated and they're like, they're no longer in a space of fear or concern because we've just talked about what you're good at, what you're really comfortable at. And so they go to that place. And so what we do is we start to work with a person from where they are and take them into a place where they want to be so that we can operate from that elevated version of the person, right? We're not going to play with the person who is worried about everything because I won't ever be able to help them to move forward. And so we start off by really talking to the right version of that person. And then they start to realize the possibilities. And then we talk about who they're helping, you know, what is a good example of someone that you helped. And then they start to go into that genius again and start to realize it's not about them. So once we can get past that and start to focus on the right things, then the next part of the process is to do what we in the UK refer to as hand holding. I mean, this is a word that may not translate so well to some of your audience if they're not used to that, but we don't mean that we just hold hands. What we mean is we are literally walking them through the process almost side by side. I'm walking there and they are here. and we are just doing things together. And as you would have experienced, it's about let's go through and get the lighting set up. And can you see the impact of the lighting? Now that we've adjusted it, do you see what's happening? And once you start to see it, then it kind of self perpetuates now because you're feeling more confident. You're feeling like, hey, you know what? I didn't think I could do this, but now I can. And I'll just wrap up by saying one thing that was really important some years ago that someone said to me, and this was really key to helping me to understand what I was doing different. We had done this training session, and it wasn't just one person; there was lots of people on. And this person waited until everybody else had, this was an online session, by the way. They waited until everybody else had left, and they said to me, "Thank you so much for not making me feel stupid." And in that moment, I thought, well, what kind of experiences has this person had before? Why they associated learning with feeling stupid? And so it was a strange thing to say, but I gave it a lot of thought, and I realized that what the person was trying to tell me was that I had accommodated them in such a way that they felt really comfortable learning from me, and as though I was just like walking along and saying, here's the path. This is where you walk. Walk here, walk there, put your foot there, step gently here. And that's really, I think, what we're trying to achieve in working together. So it's very much working side by side and helping someone to just step away from the fear part of it because I'm walking exactly with you.
Yeah, and I can just admit and confirm this. It's really, you don't overwhelm people. You go step
Mm,
by step
mm,
so they feel safe. You don't say, you have to do this, 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 this. You say, let's focus on the camera first. And then also financially, you can, adjust. You have the camera. Okay, that's fine. Now let's look at the light. Can you afford some lighting? And what kind of lighting is good? And so you don't mess up and buy all the stuff you think it's good and then it's not good at all. And I mean,
yeah,
I just have three lightings and it's perfect for me and what I use
it's
it and
amazing.
what I need it. And it's just, we develop this together. And before I was really like, oh, I have to buy this and this and this and this. And oh my gosh, how do I bring those together? And now I have too many stuff I don't use actually anymore because it
Yeah.
was unnecessary. So you take all away the guesswork,
Hmm.
the buying who is really not necessary because you are the pro. So it's fantastic. So back to the question. Visual appearance plays a crucial role in your work. So how can coaches ensure that they look appealing while still appearing professional in their videos? So what not to do probably or what to do?
So this is one that is a really good question, which takes into account that there are certain things that we should do that will work, and there are certain things that will create more of a challenge. Now, both you and I today are on what we would call a very high contrast setup. So we've got the area around us, which is a bit lighter, a bit brighter. And then we're in the middle wearing something a little bit darker, which makes us stand out. We cannot be missed. And if we're in a group of people online, then we stand out. And so the first thing that I would say is declutter your background. And a lot of people, if you look on certain spaces, I won't call out any names, but if you go on certain spaces, you'll see that people have all these books in the background. They have all these things in the background to almost try to anchor them in their expertise. And one of the challenges with that is everything that's going on around you is taking the attention away from you. And if you look at portraits over the last, I don't know, maybe 150 years or so, you'll notice that there's a commonality to portraiture, and that is you really want to uh, unclutter the space so that you can focus on the person. And I took so many photos of people in, corporate settings that I can tell you that I would take a picture of them in a busy office and I'd say, okay, let's try something different. Let's just do this where I put something behind you and it obscures all of the office. And I can tell you every single time they went for the picture that had the decluttered background. So that's the first thing I would say. Don't let things compete with you in the image. And also something that we can do is to wear items of clothing that are plain, right? So not patterned. It's not to say you cannot wear that, because everything that I say here, someone will say, well, there's this wonderful photo that I've seen, or there's this person who has used that to good effect. That's great, because sometimes if it's your style, your system of how you visually present yourself, and you're known for that, then that's okay. You know, but that's more of the exception rather than the rule. So for the vast majority of coaches and business owners, I'm going to encourage you to go down the route of what I know works for the majority. And that is a plain background, simple colors. And there are some colors which our mentors have taught us over the years that are much higher converting colors than others. And they've done all kinds of tests to verify and validate this. And so, yes, there are some colors that really do work for, um, whether you are considering yourself to be a coach, whether you consider yourself to be an expert. A suit will always be a higher converting than something which looks a bit more like you're more relaxed or in sports. Now, if you're a sports therapist, then you might want to put on something that's associated with what you do. But ultimately, people want to connect with you. And this is the key. They're not connecting with what you do. People don't buy the fact that I have got all this photography experience, I've got all this teaching experience. What they buy is me. Can they work with me? And so the first thing I want to encourage you to do is to think visually. I don't have to show them that I'm a sports expert by having lots of, heavy weights, dumbbells, and these things in the photo. It's about getting them to connect with me first. And so don't have lots of patterns if you can avoid them. If you can avoid glasses unless you absolutely have to wear them, because they might create reflections and things that can be difficult to manage with your lighting. So if you can avoid them, avoid big jewelry, having gold chains that just droop around. Again, if that's your thing, that's what you're selling, that's okay. But again, we're just trying to connect with people when we're online and in this space, and we're trying to remove any distraction that gets in the way of our message. So these are to be taken as pointers to say, when we do them, they might distract from our message, and people keep focusing on that book, trying to read what the book says in the background. And there are people for whom they will say, this is the way that I have done it and it always works. But I'm just suggesting what I think, based on the thousands of, maybe, I don't know how many, I haven't counted, but I would say it's in the high tens of thousands and probably low hundreds of thousands of headshots that I've done over the years, and shots at different events. And you see patterns. You start to realize that people choose based on certain criteria, and you see patterns. And again, my photography knowledge is, from learning from other photographers, you start to see these things, and you realize it's not arbitrary. These are not just a style thing. These are how human beings work. Again, from a visual sense, and we won't have time to go into the colors to wear, but we want to keep colors complementary to our skin tones. So, for instance, if I'm wearing suits that are very, very bright, they're not going to really work for my skin tone. So I want to keep suits or clothing within a certain range. And also just remember, we're dealing with video technology. You might have seen this, Cecile, where this used to happen in the older days, where someone would wear what we call a check or a pattern that's like a chessboard pattern, but really fine. And it would create this illusion of, the little dots are dancing around on the person, particularly if they have a tie, and it's an interference pattern that's happening. We want to avoid things like that, because they're just going to show up in the way that we didn't want them to show up. So I don't know if that's covered, but hopefully that's helped to give some tips that I think will be useful.
Yeah, I just wear today this blue, a little bit darker blue. And I thought, I know Patrick is always wearing blue, his blue thing.
Mm.
So I will also, match him. But now I'm
Yeah.
I'm a bit more white, and it looks really white. I noticed there was like Shall I ask if I should change my dress today? But I just left it.
No,
So,
it works fine, Cecile, because what's happening for you today is it's framing your face, right? And
okay.
what we have to remember is, and this is really good for babies actually. If you look at babies, um, do babies they look at your face? That's the primary space from which they identify who you are, and they work out whether they like you. I want you to do a test, or get your audience to do this experiment. Go up to a baby, preferably a baby that you know, right?
Yeah,
Someone who's
yeah.
allowing to get close to their baby, but see what they look at. See if they look at your clothes or if they look at your hair. I would almost guarantee you that they stay fixated on your face. They look at your face because that's what they're reading. And so if we think about what's happening on a human level, is the face is the thing that tells us what's going on. The eyes, in particular, tell us whether we're friendly or not. We can tell this almost instantly. We just see the eyes, and we can tell, on an instinctual level, whether this person is going to be kind to us or not. Because these are autonomic responses, right? The body cannot control what it's doing. When we have a feeling of disgust, we almost certainly cannot stop our body from showing it. And you have to really train hard to stop it. And even then, you're going to have telltale signs, right? But look at what babies do. They look at the face, they focus on the face, and they will stay fixated on your face for the whole time they're looking at you, because that's what they're using to judge who you are. And as human beings, I get this a lot. People say, Patrick, smile more. I really do. But I'm not always a smiley person. I try to work on it. But there are some people who smile more naturally. And so we feel more comfortable going up to them. If a person is frowning and they look serious all the time and you need directions, you kind of like think, do I really want to ask that person? So it's your face. That's the most important thing. And what you've done today is you framed your face so that it really draws a person in to look at you. So honestly, this works.
Ah, good. Thank you for the confirmation. So, just one more important question I really want to ask you. In the digital
Yes.
age, audience interaction is key. So, what
Yes.
tips, because you have so many tips, what tips do you give your clients for enhancing viewer engagement during their live sessions?
Yeah, really good question. I love that one. And you see, audience participation has to be designed into the presentation. So it's not an afterthought. You have to design the presentation around that. So what I do a lot when I'm doing a presentation within an audience is I firstly design the session so that people have the opportunity to come on the stage with me. So that's the very first thing. I don't just do a talk. I try to workshop so that we can actually get interaction. And so when we are thinking about the workshop is if we were in and I take what you do is a very hands-on, right? You have to deal with the person and interact with the person. And so what you have to be tuned into is what does that person want to get out of it? Really, what primarily are they trying to get out of it? So what we're doing here is we're designing the interaction so it doesn't feel disconnected, it flows. And so if I were helping someone with lighting, for instance, within a session, I would say, I know what people want is to improve their lighting. So we would, in the build up to that session, make it very clear, come to the session prepared to adjust your lighting, because that's what we're going to do. I'm going to let you know, I'm going to run some time where we can come up together and work together. And so what do they want to get out of it? They want better lighting. They want to increase the chances of their lighting. And if they want something and I offer it, there are going to be people who will take it up. If I put something out there which is going to, as we mentioned earlier on, increase the stress levels because it's going to sound like it's really complex, really difficult. So if I say, I'm going to teach you how to put in all these wonderful transitions into your PowerPoints, then how many people do you think are going to put their hand up and say, yes, I want that? Because there's a higher chance of failure. There's a higher chance of embarrassment, of judgment. But if I give you something that you really want, you're going to want it. And if I create a sort of a workshop where there's everybody is now on camera, everybody is now visible. The fact that they're on camera increases the chance of that person interacting with you. If they're not on camera, firstly, you got to get them on camera. And then if they
Yeah.
get them on camera, you now got to, so you're increasing the number of hurdles you've got to go through. So it's really about making sure you're giving them something they want
Mhm.
and making sure that they get that result out of it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that's so good. Um, I also want to ask you, you've mentioned that you want to create a community of coaches. So, what is
Mm.
your long-term goal for this community, and what kind of support do you provide to its members?
Yeah, I love that one. So in terms of the idea of a community, well, over the last maybe 5, maybe 6, 7 years, certainly around the time of the pandemic, we've noticed that coming through all of the big social media platforms, they've started to realize that communities were the kind of the future of the online experience. And when we say community, we're going to separate that out from social media, because social media is a place we go generally for distraction, right? We want to kill some time. But when we have a community, we're coming there to get something that enhances us. So we want to grow in some way. And what's been happening in the last certainly 3 years, I can tell you, is that the online community has grown from being a place where we go and we type away to being a place where we actually are meeting online. So lots of online communities now are actually taking place on these meeting platforms. And so what I see for the community and what I'm trying to build for my community is a lot more of that, where we actually spend time coming together online. We invest the time, the energy into building those deeper relationships, because I think that's the key to community, is building relationships that people are getting the same things from each other that they want, and they're giving, they're supporting. And so my community really is initially, like most communities that transition, where people come in, they mostly type, they mostly receive information, but it's transitioning people towards an online community where we are virtual, we got our cameras on, we might actually work together. We might be doing completely different things, but we want to actually go into what we might call a virtual office space. And I know that I can just say, "Hey, Cecile, what's happening with this particular project that you're working on?" And what we're doing at the same time is we're recreating the office, but virtually online, and it's got people working in it who might not have the same job. you know, they work for different companies. But what we're creating is this space where people can interact, because what's happening with more and more of us today, we're working at home, we're working alone,
Mhm.
and we are losing that ability to interact with each other in a friendly human way. And so for a lot of us, that's now showing up in our businesses. We are operating from a business space that says, I work alone and I'm not used to working with other people, and that's a problem, right? So I think that's the goal, is to have a blend where the people who are not yet ready to be online, in a virtual space, or for 8 hours a day or maybe more, they can just type away. But the people who really want to engage and grow and step outside of that solo, or the silo as we call it in the UK, they want to step out of that silo and really communicate. Then they get to do this all online.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's so important. If you're a solopreneur, the mastermind thinking, because other people have other ideas and other knowledge and skills, and it's such enriching. Yeah, it's just beautiful to enrich each other and help each other. I love this. I love your community. It's it's fantastic.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad I'm
Thank
in it
you.
and can learn so much. So, lastly, how do you stay updated on new technologies or trends in digital coaching? What resources do you utilize?
Okay, that's a powerful question, and I think we have hit a point in terms of the technology, from cameras and audio, where there's probably not going to be much change in the equipment. So that's a bit of a good news.
I'm
um,
so glad.
the, the camera that you have today, will be okay for another, 10, maybe 15 years, as long as the camera can last that long. Um, so the way that I stay updated is I actually go to different events. And in fact, there was one this week, but I wasn't able to go to it in London. An expo, if you want to call it something like that. There's big ones that happen around the world, like CES in the USA. But these events are a good place for us to go to just see the new different options that are coming out from the manufacturers in these different areas. So there are lots of them for different industries. So that, for instance, the film industry, they do one, then there's one for photography, then there's one for people who are specifically for video. So there are all these different spaces that I go to learn. And I also do a lot of learning online. So I use social media just like anyone else. I will type in and search and find things. But the way that I tend to keep on top of it is by actually doing it. That's the primary way that I find that you can watch videos for hours, but you won't learn anything until you actually do it. And the things that I think are going to be really important in the next few years are going to be, we're going to eventually move towards what we call 4K. 4K meaning that resolution across the screen is like what we get on most of our televisions now. I think there will be a move towards 4K, but that doesn't necessarily change the equipment that we're using, right? I think the equipment is going to be the same. One of the other things that I think a lot of people are now moving towards is the collaborative types of platform. So how do we, for instance, like what we're doing today, how do we create this interview, this collaboration, this space, and quickly edit it so that we don't have to now spend hours learning to edit and we don't have to spend hours learning how to get, you know, our subtitles onto the screen, for instance. So things like AI are playing a part in helping us to achieve some of these things. And but by AI we mean machine learning, right? We're a little way off from actual AI yet, but machine learning that's going to help us to create these things much more quickly. So there's a speed side of it. There's the lowering the barrier to what we actually have to learn, because that's a big part of what we're all trying to do today, right? I don't want to necessarily have to learn how to operate all of the pieces of equipment, and I'm sure you want to just you want to serve your audience, right? So that the main part of this is really about staying alert to what is coming on the horizon, but also just doing, working with stuff, typing away, figuring out what happened. So yeah, I spend a lot of time going to places and talking to people who are also industry experts like myself, going to other networks and talking to people who are we might call them geeks, right? We are people who we like to spend a lot of time doing this, and so that's the main way that I learn and stay on top of it.
I love your approach. You start somewhere and you just go out. You try it out, you work on it, then you see, oh, this didn't work, this works. Okay, I have to go this way. And you don't let yourself stop by the technology. The technology should always be a support. That's what they told us always in the mastermind. I remember it should be supporting you and your business. It shouldn't be um, the main part of your work dealing with tech. And you're doing this
Yeah.
so well. You think, then you try out, and then you think again. And oh, I love it. You're so well prepared. It's just amazing. And I love working with you because it's so easy. You go step by step and you're so patient. I could just talk on forever, but I want to thank you so much, Patrick, for taking the time to share your insights with us today. Your expertise in helping me and other coaches enhance their online presence is truly inspiring, and we appreciate your valuable contribution to our conversation. It's really a wealth of information people can get away from today's session. It's impressive. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cecile, for the opportunity. I'm glad to be able to speak to your audience as well. It's always great to be able to share what we do and to, the as they say, if you do what you love, you're not really working, right? I mean, we are still working, but
Yes,
it
yes.
is a fun work. We're enjoying it. And so thank you for the opportunity to be able to do that. And if I may, Cecile, is it okay if I
Yeah,
offer
I just
something?
wanted to ask because you told me you have some little something or big something for our audience. So please share it with us.
I do indeed, and it's a pleasure because, as Cecile, you've mentioned before, that we met each other through our mentors, but we didn't just allow that to be the only way that we interacted. Right, we've continued to connect together, and it's because of this connection, this deep connection that we have as really good friends, and helping each other in business as well. That's the reason why I'm able to do this. So this is not something I do for everyone. Just to be really really clear, this is something that I'm doing for Cecile, to your audience, because we have a really great relationship working together. And so for so many people, the biggest challenge, as we talked about, was not wasting money buying stuff, right? That's one of the biggest challenges that a lot of people go through. And so what I've done is I've put together a course which is called a 30-minute lighting masterclass. Now, of course, there's a bit of marketing in the name, so it's not a 30-minute course, but it's a course which is designed to help you to put together really high quality lighting in no more than about 30 minutes. And so it takes you through setting up, it takes you through choosing the different types of light. And I have some recommendations that I make so that you don't have to go out and figure that part out for yourself. And then I walk you through the process for setting them up and for understanding how you can best get lighting to really shape around your face. So you look like what Cecile looks like, you look like what I look like online. And we can get this nice professional quality lighting in 30 minutes or less, because not everybody has a dedicated studio and you want to be able to just pop your lights up, take them down and pack them away, as you do. And so
Yeah, I'm doing this every time and it takes me probably 30 minutes. You're right.
there you
Perfect.
go. And that becomes less of a barrier then to saying yes to meetings, right? Yes to podcasts, yes
Yeah.
to all of these different types of things we want to do. So this course is a really short but impactful course to get you going so that you can start your journey towards getting better lighting. And not going to read out the code right now, but Cecile, you'll be able to add that
Mhm.
code for your audience. And what I'll do is I'll make this available to everyone who is one of Cecile's audience members up until June. So the end of June in 2025, you'll be able to have access through this link. So don't delay, get it now. Jump in, take advantage of this freebie. It is free, but it's not without price, right? It's got value, it's got huge value around it. And just to give you an indication of the value of the course, it's a course that I would actually charge uh, almost £700 for, because of the value that it brings when you understand how to do this. So that's my gift to you and your audience, Cecile. Please,
Oh,
hope they all enjoy it.
yeah, I'm sure. And I really think if you don't take this, you're insane because it's the big thing, for today and for our future. This is just
Yes.
the standard nowadays. If you are not well lit up, you can't show up professionally. You will not have bookings for speaking engagements. You will not have high paying clients. It's just, people expect you to
Yeah,
be to look good and sound great.
exactly.
So you're the person to go to, and I really hope a lot of people can enjoy this course and get in contact with you because you have so much more to offer than just the lighting. And this is a big part, but the other things from inside out, it's really so valuable. Thank you so much again, Patrick.
Thank you, Cecile. Thank you.
Thank you all for listening to today's interview. We appreciate your time and interest. Remember, when it comes to presenting yourself online, it's all about looking good and sounding great. If you're ready to elevate your presence, don't hesitate to reach out to Patrick for assistance and book a discovery session today or this course. The recording of this interview will be available on our YouTube channel, and also you can follow us for more content to come on our social media platform. Let us know how you found the event. Until next time, stay connected with your mind and body.